this next section, we'll go over the heart of Boy Scouting, which is being prepared. So we're going to look at the weather, everything we need to know before we arrive, the location that we're going to choose. We're going to make sure we have the right equipment and be prepared to leave for our outing. If we're going to go climbing, we need to determine whether we're going to go indoors or outdoors. If we're going to go indoors, there's several local-based Phoenix climb centers, such as AZ on the Rocks, that we can go to. I'm going to discuss going outdoors. If we're going to go outdoors, the website shown here, the Mountain Project, will help us find a good climb that's within driving distance. The Mountain Project website shows you local climbs and their difficulties. We're going to do a geographic search for hikes and climbs around us. We can do a geographic search for hikes and climbs near us. You can see here that there is a boulder problem, which if we're into bouldering and we have the proper equipment for that, we can use this as a starting point. But we're going to look for a climb that is a sport climb. Up here you'll see Hobo House, which is a sport climb as well as a traditional or top rope climb. We'll be able to zoom in and figure out where it is and how it works. As we zoom into Hobo House, we can see that it's close to Papago Park. There's ample parking and it's just a short hike to the base of the climb. There are many climbing opportunities at Hobo House. We're going to choose Jack's Papago as it allows us to top rope and sport climb. We can see from the website that we need a 60-foot rope and we can do top roping and sport climbing. We can also see the shape of the rock that we'll be encountering. We can also read reviews about other rock climbers' experiences on the rock so we know what we're going to encounter once we arrive. Now that we know where we want to go, we got to look at weather conditions for the place that we will be going. We can see that if we want to climb early as it gets hot, and the rock face will get very hot to hold and to pull ourselves up on. We also want to scan the local radar weather to make sure that there's not larger weather patterns coming that could disturb our climbing. Hi Scouts, I showed up at our pre-designated meeting space, and the first thing you'll notice is that I have water. We all need to stay hydrated, so make sure you drink plenty of water while we're hiking to where we're going to be climbing. Aside from water, I have a hat to protect me from the sun. After the hat, I have a lightweight, breathable shirt. This is made of a synthetic material that's moisture wicking. It's not too big, so I don't snag my hands when I'm going to grab for stuff around my waist, such as a carabiner. I also have pants. So I could have chosen shorts since we're in the desert, but we're going to be on some rock that may scrape up the lower part of my legs. Particularly if we're going to be climbing on granite, the granite can really tear up your legs, so I protect them. If I get hot when I'm belaying, I can always zip them off because these pants are zip-off type. Finally, when I show up to my designated meeting area, I have hiking shoes. I didn't show up in my climbing shoes because we have to generally go to where the rock face is. If I showed up in my climbing shoes, I would damage them and perhaps even damage my feet because the climbing shoes are made for smearing on the rock. After my clothing, there's a few things in my bag that'll help us along in our journey. Let's take a look at that. So in my bag, I have sunscreen. This sunscreen should be applied about every 2 hours while we're hiking. Same thing goes for when we're climbing. But when we're climbing, we want to make sure that we're cleaning off our hands so that way we don't get sunscreen on our rope or any of our gear. It can make it slick and hard to hold, and you don't want to be slipping with some of your rope. I also have a cell phone. This helps us to keep in contact with those we love, let them know that we're running on time or late, but also helps us in case of emergencies. So we can have an emergency plan to call someone who can come help us or to notify a medical professional. I also have a first aid kit, just in case, so every Boy Scout can be prepared for those emergencies. Now that we have a location and we've checked the weather, we need to make sure that all of our gear is in place, so that way when we arrive, we'll have a smooth climb with all of our proper gear. First thing we're going to want to have is a climbing harness. The climbing harness has to be fit and ready, so every time I go out, I'm going to check it. I'm going to look all over it, making sure that it's set to go. So what you'll notice is that mine's a little bit dirty, which means I've been using it. I've been using it outside. But it doesn't mean it's not serviceable. So every time you go, you should check that it's serviceable and ready to go. If you're going to go to an indoor climbing house, they have harnesses that you can rent that have been checked on a weekly basis. Next, we're going to need our climbing rope. Our climbing rope here is a 60 meter, 9.8 millimeter climbing rope. So this has been a serviceable rope. This has had 0 falls on it. This is the middle of our rope. So the middle of our rope, as you can see right here, is marked with 2 black lines. That's how we know the middle of our rope. So when we're going to flake this out, I'll show you what flaking is later. When we're going to flake this out, we know this is our middle. So this is really important to know for rappelling, which you guys have already done, but this is really important to know for rappelling. So we're going to make sure that our rope is serviceable, and we're going to make sure that there's no cuts, tears, or anything, and we have more than enough rope for our climb. So this is a 60 meter rope, so I want to make sure the climb that I choose is less than half of that. So I can get all the way up and down and top rope my climb. Okay, so the next thing we're going to have as one of our devices is ATC, or air traffic control devices. Now you may be saying to yourself, that sounds like a nautical term or an airplane term, but I can assure you this is a climbing term. So Black Diamond was the first ones to coin the phrase. There's a Black Diamond logo there, but first ones to coin the phrase. And so everything is called ATCs, and it's just like Kleenex. Everything is called Kleenex even though it's facial tissue. This one is an ATC, and everyone will call it different things, but everyone likes to call them ATCs. So we want to make sure, again, this is serviceable because this is our belaying device. And you can see here that the climbing person is on this side, the belaying person is on this side. So when we clip this in, we're going to push it through here. We're going to clip this to our harness. I don't have a harness on, but clip this to our harness. And then we're going to, this is not going to allow our rope to pull out. So this ATC is going to help us belay. It's going to be hooked to our belt, and we're going to be belaying here. The rope's going to be pulling through, and our climber is going to be on this side of the rope, and our hand and or belay is going to be on this side of the rope. The next piece of equipment that we need is our carabiner. So the carabiner, as you can see right here, there's a red line. Once I screw that in, you can't see the red line, it's locked. If I unscrew it, you can see that it can open. That means danger. One other thing I want to point out is that this is rated on the side right here. You can read the number of kilonewtons this can support. You want something up above 20 kilonewtons. This one right here, red means danger again. Do not climb with this. It says do not for climbing right on the side. So this one has no lock, no gate, but you can use this to hang your gear. But you want to make sure if you're having 2 types of carabiners with you, you want to make sure that you separate the ones that are not rated for climbing. I want to show you a little bit different carabiner, and this one's for our ATC. So this one, when it's open, again, there's no red line here, but once it's closed, that means I can lock this gate. Once I lock this gate, then this can be used with my ATC to help belay. So this is a really nice carabiner. I prefer it for rope management. So this will be my personal carabiner, and I'll be using these for securing ropes or securing some of my locks in climbing. Okay, so next we have our shoes. The shoes that you see are different than our traditional street shoes. They're very flexible. The rubber here is very pliable, so that way when you're smearing on a rock surface, they'll grab onto it and give you just a little bit better grip. And you can grip with your toes with them and grip with your heels with them. So that's what these shoes are made for. Again, we're going to check that these are serviceable before we go. So what I'll notice here is that my shoes have a little bit of a hole right here, and they have a little bit of a hole in the toe. Now these are okay for the climbing that we're going to do today. It's all local, but I think after the next couple times we're going to have to replace these shoes because you're climbing with your feet. Okay, the next piece of equipment that we're going to need is a helmet. So I think all you guys are familiar with our traditional bicycle helmet here. So we have a visor here to keep the sun out of our eyes, but we have vent holes here. So this is not okay for climbing. Now what's the difference? This is our climbing helmet, and you can see that the top of the helmet doesn't have holes. The reason why it doesn't have holes is we have rocks that end up falling down, and this is supposed to protect your head. So if the rocks come down and they have a sharp point, they can get stuck in these holes. So we don't want that. We're going to stick with a traditional climbing helmet. It has a guide right here. This can adjust the size of our helmet, and we put it on. Goes around our chin, and we're ready to climb. So that way if we have rocks falling on us, we're okay. The next thing we have is our personal anchor. So our personal anchor is just what it sounds like. This holds us down to the ground, so we can tie it under our harness. We put it down to the ground to hold us down when we're belaying someone, so that way if they fall, they won't pull us off the ground or into the wall. If we're at the top of our climb and we're going to clean our climb, we're going to tie into the very top point that we've top roped into, and this is going to hold us. When we're starting to tie our top rope, we're going to tie this into an anchor point and help us to safely tie up our top rope and get those all secured. So this is for any time that we're not on the rope or we need an extra layer of protection. This is a little bit different than our traditional webbing. So our webbing is sort of thin. This is just a car webbing here. Don't confuse these two. This is our personal anchor, and this is just webbing that you find in your garage. So these two are not the same thing, and they shouldn't be used as such. So our personal anchor is our next piece of safety equipment. Okay, so these are, as my daughter would point out, carabiners on a rope. So what you see is there's two carabiners here, and these are called quick draws actually. So these quick draws help you to sport climb. So when there's anchors inside the wall, so if there was wall anchors inside of our wall, what we do is we clip these on as we go to each point in the wall, and then we clip our rope through here. So what we do is we put our rope through here, and then that helps you to only fall that far. So these quick draws go onto a point in our wall, they clip into there, and then you push your rope through the quick draw. Okay, we're going to talk about some optional items that you can bring. You don't have to bring them, but my crew and I do, just to help our ropes last a little bit longer, to help with managing some of our equipment. But we always bring a tarp or a drop cloth. The reason why we bring this is so we can keep our rope clean. So you're going to put your rope, you're going to flake out your rope onto your tarp, keeping it clean, because if you think about it, every time you get dust on your rope, it's like little sandpaper grinding away at it. You're putting your life on this rope. So you want to make sure this stays serviceable and good as long as possible. So I generally put down the tarp to help protect my rope, and we're going to a place that may have some glass on the ground. If it has glass on the ground, we're going to want to put this tarp down, one, to protect ourselves, but also to protect our feet and our shoes. There's been many times where people have broken bottles up against a rock face, and we didn't want to step in it, and this tarp saved us. So finally, you're going to need some food for the road, and what better food than 2 bags of biscuits?